Hello, everyone who has joined our webinar. Roel, it's very nice to see you here. So let me first introduce myself and the project that we're implementing and in the frames of which this webinar is happening today. I am Arevik Ashkarayan. I am the founding director of ARI Literature Foundation based in Armenia. And with a consortium of partners from Armenia, Georgia, and Ukraine, we implement a Creative Europe cooperation project, which is called Visual Stories from Armenia, Georgia, and Ukraine. Our partners from Georgia are Literature Initiative Georgia organization, Medea Medreveli, Nino Nadibaidze, who are also here with us at this webinar, and in Ukraine, Komora Publishing House, Alla Kostovska is also with us. The project that we are implementing is aimed at developing the comic book and graphic novel genre in our 3 countries. There are 2 components to this project. One of the components is a series of webinars on developing the skills. So today we have one of those seminars dedicated to the topic of promotion and marketing of comic books. The other component, big component of the project is the creation of one collection of 3 short stories, one from each participant country. Stories written by women writers, acclaimed women writers in our countries, and illustrated by selected illustrators based on an open call and competition that we implemented earlier this year. So the project final product, the book of these 3 stories, will be published in all our languages and also will be translated into English, French, German, hopefully published in those countries in these languages. That's in short about us. So I would like to represent our speaker today, Roel Daenen, who has studied history at Ghent University and the Universidade Nova de Lisboa in Portugal. I'm sorry if I do not pronounce everything correctly. He started his career as an audience developer at BOZAR, the Brussels Center for Fine Arts. At Faro, the Flemish Institution for Cultural Heritage, Roel coordinates the communication and is also chief editor of the magazine Faro. He wrote the book, which is called It's Just for Laughter, How Cartoonists Are Changing the World, for the publisher Polis on the occasion of the 1st anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo attack. Roel is also editor-in-chief of the acclaimed literary magazine Stripgids, according to the Dutch newspaper the Volkskrant, the most beautiful comics magazine of Europe. Thank you, Roel, for joining us today. We have already had webinars on creation of comics book, storytelling in comics book. We had also a webinar for publishers and for writers, for comic artists. But today, apart from the whole lot that you are doing in this industry, we would love, first of all, to hear about your experience, how you got here. And mostly, we would like to ask you to concentrate on promotion and marketing of comics books, not only for publishers, but also for individual comic artists, because with this project, we are promoting the possibility for them to, to learn self-entrepreneurial skills, to learn how to sell their work to publishers, how to promote. So this is the main topic of our webinar. Thank you very much. I'm giving you the floor. At the end of your talk, we will also be open for questions. So we're asking the participants to write questions in the Q&A section, and I will join later again to read these questions for you.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Arevik, for the introduction. Thank you too for the invitation to be part of this series of seminars. I have prepared a presentation which I will share right away. You call it a seminar, but I would like to recall it more like something as a change of thought because, well, you might call me an expert on promotion and marketing of comics, but I'm sure you also will have some experiences, and it would be nice if you could share them. So the question was how to promote and market comics. My name is indeed Roel Daenen. We're the 23rd of May, and we're at the ARI Foundation. You know, it is a Belgian flag. It's a tricolore. It's the black, yellow, and red color. It's the national flag of Belgium. Um, we could start with a question like, what is Belgium famous for? And I can't see you, but maybe you have in mind something. I asked Google and I could ask ChatGPT today, what is Belgium famous for? And if you look at the pictures, you would see waffles. You would see the Brussels Grand Place. It's the big market, central Brussels with a flowery carpet. You would see some beers, some waffles, which is the national dish in a way of one of the national dishes, and so on. And so on. This is it. Again, flowery carpets, Gothic architecture, the atomium, which is a remnant of the Expo 58, the World Exhibition. Some pralines, which is in the lower rank, the third, if you start from the left, which is a chocolate delicacy, or even some mussels. And if you continue this, you see this. It's arts masters such as Magritte, Breugel, Van Eyck. I didn't know that even the most castles per square kilometer. But what interests us here is many successful comic books like Tintin, Lucky Luke, and the Smurfs. You might all know them. So if I complete my question of what is Belgium famous for, and I add it with comics, we will see these guys: Tintin, Spirou, the Marsupilami, Yoko Tsuno. On the lower rank, the second from the middle, from the left, is the Belgian Comics Center, and so on. And to be precise, you also see Asterix at the left side, but he's French, he's not Belgian, so I wouldn't acclaim him. And you might know, or you might not know, that we have some new passports. If you're a citizen of Belgium, you will have this passport, and you might recognize the rocket of an album of Tintin, Man on the Moon. Just in order to illustrate how the country of Belgium, my home country, is marketing itself, is branding itself with some comic heroes. And if you want, I don't know, Arivik, but I guess you will share this PowerPoint presentation. If you want, you can watch a small video on YouTube about this passport. So one of these Belgian is me. If we talk about promotion and marketing, I always say I like the self-promotion and the self-marketing. So just to give you an idea of how I got where I am now, just two slides with a mood panel, a mood board of who I am. I'm 49. I'm married and I have two children. The picture of the Sound of Music with the family von Trapp, they have 7 children. I am the youngest from a family of 9. And as Arevik told you correctly, I studied history at indeed the University of Ghent. Hence the dragon on the left side. Ghent is a very nice historical town in the east of Flanders. Was famous in medieval times. They have a nice university, and on top of the belfry, which is one of the historical buildings in which they kept all the historical important documents about city rights and stuff, there you see the symbol of the city, which is a dragon. I studied history, and therefore I put the two portraits on the right-hand side. You can study anything about history, but I was particularly interested in two poets. The man with the black hat on his head, the right top side, is a very famous Portuguese poet. Indeed, I studied a year in Lisbon at the university, the new University of Lisbon, the Universidade Nova de Lisboa. And this man, some of you may know him if you're into poetry, international poetry and Portuguese poetry. He's the symbol of the Portuguese poetry of the 20th century, is Fernando Pessoa. And on the right of him, you see his colleague of the same period, the same style. And what binds them together is that they're both nationalists and modernists. His name is Paul van Ostaaij, and he's the, let's say, you could say the Fernando Pessoa of Flanders. He was very experimental as a real modernist. So what I did was to compare the both and to see how they worked as political writers. They're both known as innovative poets, but they're not known as political thinkers. Okay, who else do I like? As comic authors, I'm very fond of the French comic scene, and one of my top tips is Nicolas de Crécy, Léon Lacam. It's I chose this one because he has some critique on everything that has to do with marketing and selling. And in Léon Lacam, there you have the protagonist is well, a bit a loser type hero who has to take over the company of his father, and he doesn't like it. I also like some other authors like Posy Simmonds. She's British, of course. She had a great exhibition in the Centre Pompidou in Paris. And my countrywoman, my countryman, Dominique Goblet, Faire semblant, c'est mentir. I think it's translated into English as pretending is like lying. Another French author I like a lot is in the left corner, is Catherine Meurice. If you don't know her, she's great. She has been added to the Académie Française, which is like, you know, the summum of the literary and academic world in France. As a comic author, she was also part of Charlie Hebdo, by the way, and she wrote this wonderful book, The Modern Olympia. And Olympia, you would recognize her from the painting from Manet, if I'm not mistaken. The two remaining guys is Michel de Montaigne in the middle. He's a 16th century French philosopher, politician, and also the father of the essay. If you ever wondered who invented it, well, here it is. Michel de Montaigne, he wrote about everything he saw. He retired and he thought, well, I could use my time writing and describing what I see. Voilà. So please go and discover him. The guy on the right side is Raymond Queneau. He's a surrealist, and he was a playing bird, I think. He wrote Zazie dans le métro, The Sunday of Life, this kind of books, and also Exercice de style, in which he played with the form. Just to give you an idea of what I like. Arivik just told you, indeed, some things of my professional life. I work for Faro, which is the Flemish Institution for Cultural Heritage, which means I'm working for museums, archives, heritage libraries, and so on and so on. Everyone in Flanders who has a question concerning the conservation, preservation, restoration of cultural heritage, they can come to us and ask their question. Before that, I worked for an orchestra. I started my career as a communication manager in an orchestra. Then I moved, not the one you see there, it's probably the National Orchestra of Belgium on the right-hand side. And after the orchestra, I moved to BOZAR. BOZAR is the big the main art center in Brussels. It's on the Kunstberg. It's on the mountain of art, you could call it, and it's a wonderful building from the 20s, last century. And this is the main concert hall, the Salle Henri Leboeuf. If you're into classical music, well, you might have heard that it's now the Queen Elizabeth competition. It's a world famous competition for musicians, and this year's edition is all about the violin. And last week they had the semi-finals. Next week there will be the finals, and I'm glad to say there is one Ukrainian musician included, and his name, I just wrote it down, is Dmitro Udovichenko. So you might know if there are any Ukrainians in the audience, maybe he can win the competition and have some glory for Ukraine. So this is BOZAR. Afterwards, by accident, I ended up with Faro because I was very interested in the little fellow standing in front of the castle, which is puppetry. I'm always interested in both the high culture, if you want, like literature and performing arts, but also in, you could call it the more folky art, such as puppetry. And through research about the heritage of puppetry in Flanders, I ended up in the Flemish Institution for Cultural Heritage as a communication manager. So I'm communicating what Faro does, and also I'm enforcing the communicational skills of the museums, the archives, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, I also work for Stripgids. Stripgids is the maybe not so readable logo in blue and black. Strip means comics and gids means guide. So it's a magazine that exists for 50 years now. This year we will cherish, just like me, a very special birthday. And it has always been the intention of this magazine and the organization, which I will present later on a bit, to guide readers and the audience and the media through the wonderful landscape that is comics. The golden plume next to the logo is just a competition I won for the best commercial text. So I'm very fond of images, but I'm also very fond of text and writing. Next to the plume is the image of a podcast I just made recently. It's, if I would translate it, is in the museum, it's happening. And it's the facade of the British Museum in the middle of all the waves going under. And it's not by accident that I've chosen this image, because it's a podcast about the climate crisis, and it's about activism, about what museums can actually do in the battle, in the big battle against climate crisis. Het is maar om te lachen is just for laughter. Arivik just mentioned it. It's a book I wrote about cartoonists and about their position in society. And the occasion was the first, be it very sad, anniversary of the terrorist attack on the redaction of Charlie Hebdo in Paris. Left-hand side, Radio 1 Clara, De Morgen and The Standard are some media I worked for. Not very interesting. But just to remind you, the picture of the white guys and women is a picture of Mad Men. It's a series of copywriters, and in the depth of my thoughts, I might be a Don Draper, who's the protagonist of the series, a publicity boy without any frontiers. Morally, you could ask some questions about him. Anyway, Stripgids, the guide of comics. My little visite card is this magazine. I worked for Stripgids since its beginning, not since 1974, but since its second series, which started in 2006 when we got some money from government to start a new magazine as a freelancer. very accidentally, I proposed myself to the editor-in-chief, and I said, well, I do speak some French, and I am interested, and I can write, and I can do some interviewing and stuff like this. So if you're looking for someone who can do all the Frenchies, well, I could do it for you. So I did interviews with all kinds of French authors and French speaking, so also Canadians from Quebec, people from the south of Belgium where they speak French, and also from Brussels. And in 2016, we had a major change in the subsidy regime, and we lost all of our money. We went from a very, you could say, royal subsidy, which was 350,000 euros a year, to 150,000 euros. And in 2016, we all of a sudden lost. It was a decision of our subsidiant, and we got from 150 to €0, which was quite a shock in a way. Anyway, I was a freelancer, and the board of Stripgids asked me to write a new plan in order to rescue the magazine and the organization. So we, since 2016 until last year, we were looking all the time for money. We found some money, and the main thing we did with it was to make a magazine which existed since 1974. Here you've got the very first 10 issues. The first one was published in June 2016, and so on and so on and so on. So you see a kind of magazine, not your average comic magazine. We try to find always some famous comic artists to be on the cover, such as Chris Ware, Nicolas de Crécy, Bastien Vives. You might know him because he was entangled in a scandal in Angoulême last year. Judith van Istendaal, and also some Belgian people such as Serge Baken, Jeroen Janssen, and Gal. And in the right corner there, the green one is Cyril Pedrosa, also French. It's no wonder I'm a big fan of the French magazine. Here, number 11, 12, and 13, Wasterlin, Sam van Allemeer, who's a famous Flemish illustrator, and the right number 13 is Willy Lindhout. Is completely unknown, I think, abroad, but he has made a very nice graphic novel, which is called Years of the Elephant, about the suicide of his own and only son. And he has this, in my opinion, humorous series about a family you see on the cover here. This is in avant-première, the cover of the next issue I'm working on right now. It's illustration of Veerle Hillebrand, because well, we just talked about in the introduction about female authors. Also in Belgium, there is this strange phenomenon that there are many more consolidated names who are male authors, and very few female authors that continue in this profession. So this is Veerle Hillebrand, and I'm also trying to do more about and with female authors. Okay, Stripgids magazine. I told you we exist since 1974. And just to give you an idea what we do with this organization, the man in the middle is our Minister of Culture. It's Jan Bon is his name, and he's standing next to Judith van Istendaal, who has also, if I'm not mistaken, also given a seminar here. And she's one of our finest female authors of this moment. What are the two doing together? Because it's a bit strange to see them together. Jan Bon is nationalistic, is from the right-wing party N-VA. And Judith, you could say she's politically, I think, a bit leftish since the topics she is dealing with. And I know her very well. So what are they doing together? And the answer on this question is she's holding a little statue. You can see on the right side, it's called the Bronzen Ademar, the Ademar of bronze. And it's the, let's say, prize of Flanders for is every 2 years that the Minister of Culture hands this prize to an author that wins. It's a prize that exists since 1977, always been something that Stripgids has done. And it's a way of putting a highlight on an author and her, in this case, or his work. So Judith van Istendal, she won the Bronzen Ademar in 2022. So, and there was, of course, an exhibition in which her work was shown. Here it is, Judith van Istendal, ontroerend goed. It means, well, moving very well. It's a little word play. And it was an exhibition in the National Strip Museum, as you can see on the left side. So it's one of the things we do. We have a magazine, we make exhibitions. It's always a challenge to find money for it. So we're trained to seek and find money wherever it is. So that's one of the big issues. We're subsidized by Literatuur Vlaanderen, which is the literature agency of Flanders, in order to promote the Flemish literature, but they don't subsidize any exhibitions because they find it's a medium that costs a lot and it's difficult to produce. So it's always a challenge to get these exhibitions financed, especially when you think of fair pay. Everyone that's involved shouldn't be a volunteer, but should be paid accordingly and fairly. Another example, Le Fils de Tintin, the son of Tintin. It's Jeroen Janssen, who is, in his own words, the slowest graphic journalist. He also won a Bronzen Ademar in 2018. And the last image here is an exhibition we did together with the Museums of Turnhout. It's a city in which we're based. It's a small city in the north east of the country, with the museums over there, about censorship in the arts. So I told you about the magazine, I told you about exhibitions. What else do we do? Here you see an image of what we call a salon. And it's very simple. It's, as you can see, some people on the stage, somebody who asks questions to these authors, and we project some works, and they have a nice chat, and it's in front of a live audience. And it's something which is rather successful in the libraries, because, as you know, libraries have a nice collection. I don't know how it is in your countries, but in Flanders, libraries are encouraged to invest in public activities. So they do all kinds of activities such as this. And of course, they can show what they have of the author in case. And this, the images you see is, and the guy who's talking, holding the microphone, is Joris Mertens, who is a very nice guy. This is a picture of the library in Leuven, which is one of our university cities in Flanders. So, magazine, prize, Bronzen Ademar, exhibitions, salon, and we also have a festival. We had a festival, but I told you about the end of our subsidies. And if you have 50,000 euros just in order to publish a magazine, and you think of fair pay, it's very difficult to organize something that looks like a festival. You can try it, but it's very difficult. This is something we did with a lot of partners. It's called Rock, Paper, Pencil Festival. It's just one day, and it has very little to do with the classical, old-fashioned comics festival, you know, with second-hand books put in cases and people trying to find the missing book they have. This is a festival which joins both board games and comics and everything that is in between, such as graphic arts, drawing, making things, printing techniques, 3D printing, sculpting, and so on, and so on, and so on. But for subsidizing this, it was also a big quest. Next on my menu is we also are involved with lots of projects of other organizations. I think it's one of the things I will advise you later on in this talk is to join forces with other organizations or individuals. Left is Grit, is a contest that's just finished about a one-page comic. It's an initiative of Pulp Deluxe, which is also kind of, well, not a kind of, it's a literature organization about comics. And they had like 225 participants. So it was a huge record. And what we do is to give them exposure and be in the jury and things like this. On the right-hand side, there is an exhibition which is still running. So if you're coming to Belgium between now and the 23rd of June, please go to Ghent and pay a visit to the museum Dr. Ghislain. It's a mental asylum. I have to say it was a mental asylum. And nowadays it's the historical site. It's a museum, but next to it, it's still a clinic for people who are mentally ill. So it's still a bit the same. What do they do now? They have presented an exhibition of comics, and it's a very, as to me, fascinating topic about people that are considered being lunatics, mad, or have a mental disability, and they make something that looks like comics. So, and there is the museum in Lausanne, the Collection de l'Art Brut, and they have taken apart and joined it with authors, if you want, artists, outsider artists from the rest of Europe. And we're partnering this. So two examples of successful initiatives in which we do what we can to communicate, to help to promote it. The remaining ones in the middle, below is graphics. It's a great festival in the city of Antwerp. It's the harbor, very famous city, very big festival about graphical art. So we're one of the partners because it's not exclusively on Comics Day focus. It's more like graphical art. It's also illustration. But personally, I think there is a lot of space in the house of illustration, comics, graphic novels, manga, you name it. And I don't like really the boundaries between it. So it's something we encourage and something we support. The Swan and the Two Red People Having a Nice Time. It's a competition about erotical stories and erotical illustrations of the Flemish Netherlands house, De Buren, the neighbors in the center of Brussels. And we also support this. So, in a nutshell, that's what we do with Stripgids. I think it's a lot of activities. It takes a lot of creativity and also some promotion and marketing. So main issue here, let's do some marketing and promotion. In BOZAR and also later on, I had the chance of working with marketeers. And if you talk about marketing in the social profit, which is our sector, because it's not, we're not selling like Coca-Cola or any commodities. We're selling something that is more artistic. Marketeers are often seen as the devil or kind of suspicious personality because marketing has this very, well, negative odium around it. I don't think it's completely unfair, but still, I have a bit of difficulties with the marketing pur et dur because it's sometimes it will get you in a kind of cloud of words. Take, for example, this definition. Marketing is the activity set of institutions and processes for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners, and society at large, which is the definition of marketing. And my question to you is, can you actually do something with this definition? I think if we tear it a little bit apart in pieces, we can do something with it, but it takes some time and it will take some stamina to actually do this. Another thing is the aim of marketing here. Peter F. Drucker, the aim of marketing is to know and understand the customer so well the product or service fits him and sells itself. Well, I'm not sure I'm completely agreeing with Mr. Drucker because it's very difficult for a product to sell itself. You always have to have a good context around it. You should take care of the way you present it and the places you're presenting it. I said a kind of cloud of words. I've read a lot of marketing books. I did also do my part in these different institutions. And here is an installation of a tower of books, which you can see in the library, the public library in Prague. And it makes me think, well, about marketing, you can read as much as you want, but the main question is, what can you do with it? It's sometimes about this cloud of words, sometimes makes me think of this great album of Asterix, La Zizanie, in which there is a Roman agent sent to the village of Asterix in order to create a kind of dispute, a kind of quarrel. And how does he do it? Well, he introduces the system of capitalism, and Obelix, which is the rather big guy on the left-hand side, is paid for his menhirs, his big stones. And the guy, the Roman agent, who you see here at the right-hand side and talking to the Roman soldier, in the end, he's speaking a kind of language, a kind of new speak nobody can understand. And you have to follow him to be able to speak the same language. And I think, in my opinion, it's critique of Goscinny and Uderzo on marketeers. I might sound a bit critical about the way you can use marketing and promotion, especially as a comic maker, but I think it's still important, and especially if you take a look at the 4 or even more P's that are the classical marketing mix. If you look to any definition, maybe not the one of the Americans, but you will find these P's in the marketing mix. The product, what's it like? What is, in your case, what's the story? How is it printed? How is the physical product? Is it on a cheap paper? How well is it designed? So it's an element you should look at. Does it stand out, the product? The second one is the place, the location and distribution. That's one of the, also for Stripgids, one of my main issues, the distribution. And I will come to that point later on. How are people, your audience you have in mind, how will they get to know your product, your offering, your being as an author? Where do you present yourself? On which places? To have your product place. The price of the product is something very difficult. For Stripgids, we have a fixed remuneration for every author, be it a journalist, be it a comic author. And for this, we have looked to, let's say, what the sector has agreed upon. And I must say, they're at the bottom, I must say, of the spectrum, because these prices they get paid are not so high. But it's a question you should think of. Of course, it's a whole technique of counting the time, the materials, the everything you need, your promotion, and to cipher it in order to see if it's profitable or not, if you can make a living out of it or not. And then promotion, of course, the last P is something we sometimes used to forget, but it's something very, very, very important. Because if you have a wonderful product at a good price and it's everywhere, still, I don't think it will sell itself, but you always have to think of a good strategy of what's the story in which you put your product in. Who do you have as people that endorse you? Is there a way you can get into the newspaper with your product and with your offerings? So 4 Ps, there are some other Ps like people, the people that does it and the people you need, and also the planet, because nowadays everything that has to do with sustainability, if, for example, you work with a printer, I don't know, in China or far away, and your beautiful magazine or your beautiful book has to come a long way and takes a lot of energy to travel, it might be not such a good idea, especially for people that are sensible to sustainability. A way of dealing with these 4 Ps, and I know it's something very, very classical, is the SWOT analysis. SWOT analysis is a way of, as it says on the slide, a way of looking at your product, at your service. It's a way of, and you can easily do it for yourself and to share your thoughts and your everything you think of with a friend or colleagues. Just to say something quickly about the SWOT analysis, the strengths and the weaknesses, the upper part of this table is something that is internal. So it's depending completely on you, on yourself. So the strengths, what are your strengths? What are your positive points? Which things do you think you as a comic author or a magazine or an editor you think is really good? The weaknesses, it's the opposite. What are at the other side of the spectrum, what are your weak points? What do you need to improve? The lower part, opportunities and threats, are things that are below your own possibilities. It's things that happened outside of yourself and your possibilities. It's the opportunities. If, for example, tomorrow there is a comic editing house starting in Yerevan or another city, it would be a great opportunity because this is something new. It can be something societal, it can be something close, it can be something small, it can be something big. And the threats, what are the things that are threatening you as an author, as someone who is practicing the art of comics? So, and if you have these, it allows you to think about where you can or you need to invest more energy. And especially it gets interesting when you combine What if you combine a strength with an opportunity? What if you combine a weakness and a threat? And what if you combine a strength with threat? Or otherwise, a weakness with an opportunity? It's something you might know, the SWOT analysis. You might not know it, but it's something you could try. If we ask for subsidies in the next round, it's always for 4 years, it's one of the standard exercises we do, just in order to see how are we perceived, how can we improve our work, how can we improve our impact. So something you should try to do yourself. I told you it's more like a conversation. I've given you something about the marketing, but it's more on a theoretical basis. I thought it would be more interesting to share some thoughts with you. And here it is, tonight's menu, and some, well, recommendations or some advice from my own experiences. The first one is get your pitch right. Second, unity means power, but you still can work on your own. It's the third one. You have to be a bit like Sauron. I don't know if you know, but you know, of course, the Lord of the Rings saga from Tolkien, or the movies from Peter Jackson. 5, be brave, but you are, I'm sure of it. 6, try to team up with successful formulas. And something else about a feast, a Catholic feast we just had. And I've got no idea if you have it in your own country. That's why I put it in a translation in Armenian, Georgian, and Ukrainian. The Pentecost, the fiery tongues, and the word of the Lord. I had put this in, keep calm and ask questions, but we'll do it in the end. Okay, the first one is, first of all, get your pitch right. You all know an elevator pitch. It's coming from the States, like so many marketing elements. What do I mean with it? Very simple. If you have to talk about your project, it should be good. It should be really good, and you should be very convinced of it. Here in Belgium, we regularly have this kind of pitches. Montrez vos projets aux éditeurs. It's in French, and it says something like, show your project to the editors. And the elevator pitch is coming from the idea of, you just had the time of getting in an elevator, and you go up or down, and you just have the minute or the 55 seconds to talk about your project. I've got a small tip for you. There is a very good little movie of 8 minutes. It's made by the Belgian Comic Center, the Strip Museum in Brussels, and it was on the occasion of the great Strip Pitch. So it was all for authors and trying to help them with their own pitch towards editors. It's in French, it's in Dutch, but as you can see, you can easily put some other language on top of it. So here it is. I've put some, just to illustrate you, some Armenian in it. So something I recommend you to see if you do this. In short, what's the content of this video? You have to choose the right editor, of course. You might have an editor who's very into experimental stuff or very classical one. And you understand if your work or your oeuvre or your ideas are from one side or another and you're presenting it, it might not work. Something I would really advise you to, if you do this sometimes, fine-tune your pitch. What's it about? Show it. So I've been several times in this pitch of the museum, and I was always struck by sometimes young people that come to my table, look to me as I am a half god and are stuck in the middle and cannot talk properly. So if you're easily nervous or I would advise you to exercise like you're an actor. You can try with your mom or your father or your boyfriend or your husband or your wife, whatever you like, but try it, do it, just exercise and get it right, short, and show it too. Of course, it's very difficult to describe something. It's very good if you have something to share. If I go home after a pitch, it's always nice to have the coordinates of someone, but if this person doesn't have anything, it's easily gone. And I sometimes say to my wife, I'm a goldfish because I forget a lot of things, especially names and work, except for when it's very, very good. So please invest some time in a short dossier. Why do you make this story? Why this house of edition? Why are you the author of this story? Why now? And what's the essential? Of course, it also should be an original idea, something nobody has ever seen, or a story that's completely new. As I told you, it's very handy if you have something to share, to show, because then you have, well, at least an idea of what the style is like. And then the sixth element, be proud and confident of the work you've done. If you are a scared little bird, it's sympathetical, but it's better to be, well, confident, because I see it more like a chain of events, such a pitch, and every part of the chain should be strong. So you have done this, you want to be published, you want to be seen, so it would be good if you could also show it also with your non-verbal language. So you're smiling, you're happy, and everything goes well. It's a bit of psychology. You have to be able, I think, to read. It's not only for this context, of course, but it's handy if you could try to read who's in front of you. What's the person like? Is he more like he or she? Is he more like a cold type? Is he? And it will help you to try to fine tune and to find the right message. This is not a marketing guru. It's everything that I really believe in this. Advance the cause, yeah. You have to connect to people to interact them in a way that leaves them better than we found them. I think it's very abstract, but in the same time, if your stories can make a difference, be it pleasure or be it meaning, I think you have a strong position. How do you know that they make a difference? You have some critical friends. Friends mean they're nice, and critical means they can also speak freely to you. And if they say, well, this is not good, or this is not good enough, they can tell it to you without you being insulted. Second point, there is unity and there's power there. If you come together, you are more powerful than you are on your own, I think. What do I mean by this? I give you some examples from collectives here in Flanders. The left one is Tieten met haar. It's the Flemish for tits, like, tits with hair. It's a collective of women, and they do all kinds of stuff. They have competitions. The picture next to the little 2 feet with the red and the blue sock or boot is an old abbey church in Ghent, where they have a zine market. There's also a collective in Antwerp. It's called Tuig. The translation doesn't matter. But as you can see, they also have something like this, a zine, independent makers. They invite everyone, and it's, well, a nice event. The picture in the bottom is something in Brussels. So as far as I can see, there are lots of collectives. So authors that say, why don't we work together? Why don't we join forces and organize drink and draw meetings, or organize the production of our own stuff with a copier and something else? They don't need much space. So the one on the bottom is Vroom. It's a space in Anderlecht, which is in Brussels somewhere, and they have this drawing fiesta. It's very simple. They invite some people and they say, well, teach us what you know, teach us what you can. And they have their own space, and now they're busy until the end of this month with everything that has to do with politics. We have some elections in 2 weeks, so it's something very actual. So these collectives, of course, you also have the formula of the ateliers. You rent some space with other authors and you stick together and you exchange experiences and everything that goes with it. On the left-hand side is the Geslepen Potloden. It's the collective of Judith van Istendaal when she was younger. Wouter Mannaert is standing up, some people, and they all say, well, it's nice because you're not alone, and you all know as a comic author, you have a solitary life, and it might help you to share your experiences. On the right-hand side is the gele kubus, the yellow cube. The drukkerij, there are many examples. And sometimes, I don't know if you can see her, but the lady sitting at the table between the children and just in front of a guy wearing the tricolor is our Queen Mathilde. Sometimes these collectives have even some jobs in schools and stuff. It doesn't mean you always have to get together. You can also be a lonesome poor cowboy away from home. Still, I should, because not everyone is fit and wants to share his or her space all the time with other people and other authors. I think it's perfectly okay to be on your own. You can easily make your own zines. And I don't know if you have heard of Webtoon, which is an online platform in which you can post for free some manga-like work. Find it out, webtoon.com. It's Korean. There are the originals and there is the canvas. So if you have enough readers and there is a lot of interaction, it's a quite newish, well, newish from the beginning of the beginning of the year 2000, so it's not that new, but in Europe it is. You can try and see how it works. It's and if you're successful, the webtoon can ask you to draw for them. And take a look. You can easily see what's the offer there. I told you you should be a bit like Sauron, you know, in the Lord of the Rings. It's the great eye that's always watching and seeing what's happening, and nothing escapes from the attention from Sauron. If you don't are a bit like Sauron now, I would advise you to everything that is published about comics, try to follow the actual events. This is something published in the Standaard, which is one of our newspapers, the qualitative newspapers of Flanders, yesterday, about a new subscription on comics. What do I want to tell you with this? Be like a sponge and be curious, read and see, because you can only go to the next level if you want, if you know what's happening. it's good to be on your own. It's good to be focused on your work, but at the same time, you should be aware there is a whole world outside. Of course, you are, especially when you're living in Ukraine, with all kinds of things that are happening. There's many sources you can go to, like the Comics Journal. For me, it's the Groene Amsterdammer, which is the best magazine I know. It's not about comics, it's more like society, but sometimes comics are there. La Revue de Ciné. There are podcasts on comics. There are theoretical books like the one on the right-hand side by Thierry Groensteen, who was the former director of the Centre de la Bande Dessinée of Angoulême, which is the famous festival town in France. And he wrote a little booklet called La Bande Dessinée au Tournant, the comic book in the curve. So I would be like a sponge or like Sauron and read as much as you can. Not only about comics, but also about everything that interests you. Because I think for your own inspiration, for your own capabilities as a maker, as an author, you should be, there should be different sources your inspiration can come from. Be brave, even if you're not. Pretend to be. What do I mean with it? Sometimes you have to, in Flemish we say, you have to put on your daring shoes. So you should do something audacious. For example, this is a project I told you I was looking for money all the time, and we found some money with the minister that is busy with Brussels. He has a wallet for the promoting the image of Brussels. Now, it's just being published today, but the Brussels government has inscribed comic artistry, the art of making comics, on their list of the intangible cultural heritage. So they say it's very important for us. So for us as Brussels, this is part of our being someone from Brussels. And at the time, some years ago, I thought, well, it might be a good idea to go to this minister and to propose the idea of a booklet, Brussel in beelden. It means Brussels in images, about, let's say, the tourist side of Brussels, but not the classical, the things I showed you in the beginning, but like famous graveyard, biking Brussels, a famous tower nobody knows, a small park in Brussels. He gave some money, and then the next step was to go to this journal, Metro, it's called. It's a free journal which was distributed at train stations, cultural centers, and stuff. And their business model was, well, they took most of their content from press magazines and reposted it with a little bit of. So I thought, well, maybe if we can offer them a whole page of comic about Brussels, they would be very happy. And indeed it was. And at the same time, I thought, well, it might be a good way of getting people their addresses, because I included in every edition of it, there were 10 of it, but we were only able to publish 5 of it. And in the week before a great festival in Brussels, we included a little coupon in which people could come to a stand. If they gave the coupon, because it's always a transaction, they received a free copy of the Stripgids, which at the time costed 20 euros. So it was a nice transfer. And we had something like 400 addresses we could mail to say, well, you have received Stripgids, a free copy. Would you like to subscribe? So if I tell you this story, you might say, well, it's an idea that has many obstacles on it, but at the same time, you have to be brave and to try it. Another example of bravery, if you want, is in Flanders and the Netherlands, we speak the same language. Nederlands, Dutch. You could say, well, Flemish is not completely the same as Dutch. It's true, but we can easily talk to each other if we do our best. The big problem with Stripgids is, or not only Stripgids, but for editors in the Netherlands, is you don't have any comics in the literature bookshops in the Netherlands. Why is that? I don't know. It's a such sociological question. They only have something like Persepolis or Mouse or Fun Home or Tintin. That's it, nothing else. So it's very difficult to get in there. But the Dutch, they read a lot, so their sales of books, literature, is a lot higher than here. So for me as an editor-in-chief, I always thought, well, it would be interesting to be able to penetrate in the Netherlands. So I asked to a friend editor in the Netherlands, which were the bookshops she sold the most copies to of her comics. And then I wrote a letter. You see on the right-hand side. And that's a letter I won the Golden Plume with, which is the best commercial letter of Flanders, in order to convince them to take in copies of Stripgids. And I also included a copy of it. So imagine this, it's cold selling because they don't know you, they never ask you anything, and it's coming through the post. So you had to make it personal and you had to make it special and to use arguments in order to open the door. And I must say, it's success, and now we sell a lot of copies in the literature bookshops in the Netherlands, and I'm really glad with it. I told you we lost our subsidies. This man, you've seen him before. He's the Minister of Culture, but at the same time, Jan Bon, but at the same time, he's the Minister President of the Flemish government. We're living in Belgium, but we're a federalized country, so this man is also at the helm of the Flemish government. When we lost all our subsidies, I thought, well, it's a pity, but since this man is at the same time the Minister of Culture and the head of the Flemish government, we might be able to get something. So I thought, why not write him a letter and say, we are in trouble and the comic sector is in trouble, because that's a different story, but maybe we could have a chat. And so I thought, well, this will end uselessly, but nevertheless, we got an invitation. We had an hour conversation with him, and we went out with a nice amount of money, and not for once, but for 3 times. So we got 3 years in a row, 50,000 euros. So you have to be like Sauron, I think, be brave, and to try something. You think of, well, it might not work, but it works. Same thing with journalists, same thing with companies. In the right corner above, there is a very famous not a drawing, but an adventure made by Möbius, a French author who worked for Citroën, you know, the car brand, the French car brand. You never know if there is a company willing to work with you. The same thing for the comic at the right-hand side below. In Manszaak, it's a government agency which is called Flanders DC. It's the District of Creativity, and they also invest and pay good money to authors. But of course, we should look and be attentive if they're really looking for someone. And if they're not looking for someone like you might write them a letter. Be brave. This is my the guy Jan, he's called, behind his counter. It's my favorite comic store in the little town of Mechelen between Antwerp and Brussels, where I lived for some years. Jan is, well, as an editor-in-chief, he's one of the people I really rely on, because he's the one who's selling the magazine every day. Maybe not every day, but regularly. So I ask him, how is it going? What do they say? Do they have any comments? So again, think of people that can help you with this. This is a drawing of François Schuiten, one of our famous authors, and it's a drawing of a locomotive. I think it's a good thing to look for locomotives. And locomotives are, well, let's say powerful organizations or powerful people that can help you. For example, it can be very simple. For example, what I often do is to exchange advertisements like the one on the left-hand side. There is a famous Dutch magazine which is called Stripgids. They have a wonderful distribution everywhere. We cannot afford it, but we always have an exchange of advertisements. That's the door. Sorry for this. Above, you have the young people of the Buren, which is the Flemish Dutch house in Brussels. They go to Paris every year on a residency in order to write, and they also have some comic artists. So I regularly publish their stories, and it's a good thing because we're mentioned in their communication and they are helped too. So try to look for powerful partners. Like these, for example. I don't know if they're represented in your countries, but you can always try to find out. The Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Istituto Cervantes, the Goethe Institute. There is also a representation of Belgium, and there is a representation of Flanders. There's a representation of the Netherlands. And sometimes they have, I know it very well, sometimes they have a budget in order to join local forces with Belgian or Netherlands authors. So it would be good if you try to find out if they exist, if they have some funding for this, and if you could join forces with them. Some other locomotives. For example, I told you about the Graphics Festival in Antwerp. They also were brave some years ago, and it says the title in beeld, graphics kaapt de cultuurbijlage van de Standaard. It means graphics is taking over the cultural part of the Standaard, the newspaper. Sorry for the dog. It means that the newspaper has asked to several authors of graphics, the festival, to illustrate the newspaper news. So no pictures, no photographs, but only illustrations made by the authors that are featured in graphics. Something you could also try. It's just a matter, I think, of finding the right contact at a newspaper and to convince him or her of the qualities and the effect on the reader. Something else here on the right-hand side, it's called, it's the cover of a book called Typex Rembrandt. When the Rijksmuseum opened up after a long period of restoration, they did it also with a comic made by a Dutch guy called Typex. And he made a comic of a kind of biography of Rembrandt. And it's not an official biography, but he has used the archives and the drawings of Rembrandt, not his paintings, the drawings of Rembrandt as a starting point. And it's wonderful to see how it goes from drawing to comic. Again, you have to have the idea to go to the Rijksmuseum or another museum to propose this idea. A great example, I think, is in Italy. It's called a project called Fumetti nei Musei. This is of an exhibition. They have, in the meantime, more than 50 copies of authors that went to a local museum. So imagine I am living as an author in Rome. I'm asked by the Ministry of Culture to visit a museum in Rome. Imagine I'm living in Bari or in Genoa. Same thing. They're looking for, and they go to the museum, have a look around, and choose a painting, choose a building, mecenas, and develop a story around it. The same thing here. The guy on the left-hand side is our second king, Leopold II. He's very famous for his atrocities in the Belgian Congo. Before it was the Belgian Congo, it was Congo Free State, which was his own property. A horrible story. It's an archive that has asked to work on the basis of archival material to tell a story of a young Congolese person who came to Belgium and so on. Same thing with the illustration in the middle. It's the Genever. It's the, you could call it the gin museum in a town called Hasselt, who has asked another author. And Judith van Nistelrooy, the right-hand side, is invited by the Louvre in Paris to do the same as the Italians. Just have a look around and do something with a collection. And she chose for the Cycladic sculptures, which is old Greek from the antiquity. So be brave and be creative and try to think out of the box. And I find it a horrible expression, but nevertheless, I think it suits, for one time, it suits well here. Here, for those who are believers, it's a pigeon and the fiery flames. I told you I was going to say something about Pentecost. You might know the biblical story in which the apostles were sitting and shivering and were not risking a foot out of the house. And all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit came and they got these fiery tongues. I think a very important thing for you is, you could say in a way, it's a kind of state of mind. As a comic author, it's important that you are, well, in a way, proud and that you're an ambassador for your art, in a way that your speech should be fiery if you want. If you're an ambassador, you're always on the barricades in order to defend, in order to look for opportunities and not to be, I don't know, a kind of beggar in a way, like, please, please, please. No, you have something to tell. There is a powerful story. You have great art. You're all part of a tradition that is not ancient in a way. Depends a little bit. Last year, when I was on a holiday in France, I bought a comic about 6 French authors who made a book about prehistorical drawings in caves. They went together to some caves and they wanted to see the drawings in those caves in order to admire the technique and to the energy. So I think you're part of this tradition and it's something you should be proud of, and you should try to embody this proudness, I think. A last thing before I end, because we still have some time, I think, for questions, if you have, and I hope you have some. I didn't mention you anything about the content of Stripgids, but we always have a country we aim our light on. Next time, in the number 15, we will point our light on Greece. We had South Africa, South Korea, Brazil, Germany, the Czech Republic, and so on, and so on, and so on. Serbia, not to forget. But it would be nice to present the culture of your countries. So if somebody's interested, you can always get in touch, and we can talk about it. Voila, I think I've spoken an hour and a quarter, I think, something like this. So congratulations for you if you're still here, for your endurance. I really hope I have shared some experiences with you and that you have had yeah, something you learned during this hour and a quarter. So thank you very much. And I would like to give the word back to you, Arevik.
Thank you very much, Roel. It was indeed very interesting and multi-layered, not only about promotion, but very motivational, I think, as well. And it was amazing to see the Armenian, Georgian, and Ukrainian words once in a while in your presentation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well,
Yeah.
I must say it's 3 countries I don't know very good. They're far away from Brussels, but it's, I think, one of the things we like to do with Stripgids is to show we Belgians do not hold the secret recipe on comics. So there are many beautiful comics that are being published, and it's a pity we don't get to see them, I think. So
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for the invitation.
We will definitely contact you later, our partner organizations of this project, to discuss the possibility of our countries being in the limelight of the Stripgids magazine at some point when we're
Okay.
ready and when we can interest you in that. So
Okay.
thank you very much. We do have questions. So one of the questions is about the ebooks of comics.
Yep.
We have also discussed this with other, trainers and speakers here. What do you think, and what's the situation in your country? Is it worth making ebooks and marketing them, or is the comics and graphic novels mostly good in paper?
It's a difficult thing. I think there have been some initiatives about ebooks. The thing is, these initiatives started from classical fonts. I mean, with old comics that you cannot buy any longer. So the classical fonts of editing houses that said, well, we will put, a page on the on your telephone or a page on your tablet just as a whole. So you should move with your fingers, which gave a very nasty reading experience. It was horrible and it didn't work. The article I showed you is just the presentation some days ago of one of the major editing houses who have invested a lot of money into the promotion and the reworking of everything that has been published, but especially made for screen. It is very difficult to see how it will go. And it works when you have a very defined structure of a page. When you have a page like, I don't know, a series called 13, which is not like, the waffle structure with 6 squares on one page, but one kind of mess, like a painting, and you have to read in the middle and to the left and the right. It doesn't work on a reader, so it might be difficult. I think it's especially motivated by the editing house to have a bit of their heritage. I don't know how it will work for authors. What I do know is that some initiatives like the American platforms from Marvel, they do very well. They have some subscriptions formulas, and also the Webtoon platform. I know some Dutch authors who have published there, but you're still in, I don't know, in a kind of existing platform. I think it would be difficult to start something from your own, if that is your question as well. So I would advise you to try the webtoon, especially. I'm not too sure if it should be manga-like or if you do whatever. I think it should be in English, not in Armenian or Georgian or Ukrainian, but in English. But nowadays you can easily translate with DeepL and Google Translate, I think, which is a blessing. But still, if you have someone who masters English very well, please ask her or him to take a look at it and to see if that works.
I think the answer that no, the comic books are still good in paper is good enough for us. It was
Yeah,
just a, question to understand how
yeah,
to work all that out.
yeah,
So thank you.
yeah,
And one more question is about the how to grow adult audiences for comic books, because this is a question specifically for our countries, I think,
yeah,
because for a long time, talking about comic books uh, made you think of children's
yeah,
books, more like, Tintin, or, the French comics, which are maybe not for kids, but they are made kind of more like kids, they look like that and more for parents to read for kids, maybe.
yeah,
But during this project, we have discovered that the major part of the market is comics and graphic novels for grown-ups. And
yeah.
for our countries, what would be your recommendation how to market them for, the adults, to make them believe that comic books can be not only for this small, limited number of artists who are still interested and read a lot in
Yeah.
different languages, mostly in English, but local language and market it for adults? What would
Yeah.
be your recommendation?
I think you need good examples, and you need good examples, authors that make masterpieces. The standard school answer or example is Mouse of Art Spiegelman. So you have a serious subject and brought to you in a great way uh, that moves the audience. Mouse is a good example. Persepolis is a good answer, not answer, example. But also, we had the same thing in, I told you the example of the Netherlands. Emme de Jong is one of the most famous, and she wrote a book called Dagen van Zand, Days of Sand, about the American Dust Bowl, which is a very serious subject. It's not like, the usual haha he books for children, but a book with psychology, with content, history, so everyone could find something in it. There was a secret weapon for the Dutch comic industry, and also a book series of Riyad Sattouf, L'Arabe du futur, it's called, The Arab of the Future. It's an autobiography, a large biography in a way, and it was published by a serious literature. I wouldn't say there's a difference between comic editors and serious literature, but this was an editing house that didn't publish any comics yet. And it was a huge success. In a way, those two, Dagen van Zand, Days of Sand, and L'Arabe du Futur, de Arabier van de toekomst, they gave a kind of basis, and also for me in writing to these, as I told you, these bookstores, in order to say, hey, it's not only for children. You have comics with a certain depth, with serious meanings and so on. An example from here, from Flanders, is Brecht Evans. I don't know if you know his work, but you could compare him to Bruegel, for example. I don't know if you imagine the work of Bruegel, but for example, very famous is The Fall of Icarus, or the blind leading the blind. It's a huge, not huge, but great paintings with a lot of things to see, and it's amazing artwork. It's something which was completely new, so amazing artwork with psychological depth. So if I talk now to fellow adults and I say, well, I'm working in the comic industry, they say, oh, you're reading. And I say, well, you might know Brecht Evans. There's a fair chance. So I don't think it won't be a revolution. And I think there should be a bit of luck and patience involved. And at the same time, I'm sure there will be at a certain moment somebody standing up from Armenia, Georgia, or Ukraine, writing a big new comic book that will shake the let's hope the society on its fundaments. It's a bit aspirational, but I think it's the only way to go.
Your recommendation to be brave was perfect in this matter, because while working on this project, we all in our three countries found a lot of artists working on their comics, creating comics, but unfortunately, most of them have never been published still. So they need to be brave and, go to publishers and have their comics published and,
Yep.
make them successful. And also, I want to add that while talking about this big books bringing, our countries into limelight, it's very different for the outside market and very different for the inside market. Because if there is a very good, for example, if there is a very good historical comics on something important connected with our countries, it will definitely work and work better outside of the country for for European public who doesn't know much about, this stories, this, the history of the country, than for the inside audience which knows the stories. So we should also take into account these two different aspects of creating local comics for local people or for the audience outside of the country. Am I right?
You're very right. I think a good example is I told you about the country we enlighten. So we will talk about Greece, and I mean, the Greeks, how many Greeks are there in Greece? 11 million. So it's a bit like Belgium. It's not a big market. But nevertheless, they succeeded in publishing Logic comics, which is a huge success. It's about history, it's about mathematics, it's impossible, it's philosophy, but still it was a great success. I think, but I'm not too well aware of how it's organized in your country. You One of the lucks we had in Flanders is indeed we have this history and we have this tradition. Uh, so there is the possibility of a government that is giving subsidies. If not, it would be very, very, very difficult because you have great comics. Okay, but how do you get these great comics into the foreign market? It needs to be translated. There should be someone going to the fairs of Frankfurt to Bologna. That's maybe also a good idea to send in, but it's more for editors to send in stories because they also have Bologna is the children comics festival, but they have a line for comics. It's not comics, it's illustrated books. So I would try to find a connection also with government and to stress, well, this is an art form that needs, of course, many art forms need support, but if it's promising and
it is, yeah. And thank you very much for sharing about the difficulties of finding money to do this kind of project, because sometimes here it seems that it's only us who have the trouble of finding funding. And it's kind of inspiring to hear that, well, it's the same everywhere, but if you are, if you follow your dreams and if you really believe in a project, then you should go and find the money for that. Thank you. Thank you. That was very inspiring. Sometimes it seems we're, all locked in a place where everything is not, enough and the opportunities are less. But apparently, we can see now that no, it's just about you, taking seriously what you're doing and following up with the funders. Thank you very much. It was indeed very interesting and useful. I am sure that in the audience there are people, mostly artists, who are quite well aware of the names you mentioned. So for them, it's a different story. I mean, that they know better what you're talking about, but also for us, representatives of organizations or publishers who are in the audience, it's inspiring to know that how important the field is and that the marketing is not very much different from all the other books, because the publishers sometimes are afraid to publish comics, supposing that it requires a different approach to marketing. But I had an impression that pretty much it's the same, just
yeah, that's for sure. And sometimes the publishers, they try to find some new ways, but most of the time when it's very, it's far-fetched, or how do you say it? It's I don't know the word. I don't know the word exactly, but it's to me, I don't know. It's not necessary to invent something.
There are small things that can be found in the marketing that will work. I totally understand that. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone who joined the webinar. Let me also mention here that we will be publishing this video on our YouTube channel, on the YouTube channel of our Literature Foundation. It will be shared through all the partner websites and social media pages. And we will have all languages subtitles on our video so that those who are interested can also, read the subtitles in their native languages. Thank you again. Have a nice evening, and hopefully you will have a chance to visit our countries at some point and, see the market from the inside and meet the artists. Thank
I
you.
hope so. Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.